Elias stood perfectly still in the center of the chaotic command hub, his eyes devoid of emotion as he pressed the single button that would turn the entire planet into a weapon of mass destruction. The air in the room felt heavy, charged with a static that made the hair on the crew's arms stand up. Outside, the sky was beginning to bleed. Do you have the stomach to watch a hero do the unthinkable? Subscribe to our archives to witness the moments that changed the galaxy forever. The record of how we reached this precipice starts long before the sirens. The tea in Lyra's porcelain cup had gone cold 3 hours ago, long before her father had walked into the spire to trade her life for a signature on a piece of parchment. Lyra looked out from the glass balcony of the hegemony spire, watching the stars flicker through the haze of a 15-year war. Down in the valleys of the capital, the lights of the city were dimmed, a constant reminder of the energy rations and the grinding attrition of the conflict with the remnant. Her father's footsteps were heavy as he approached, the sound of a man who had already made up his mind. He spoke of alliances, of the necessity of blood bonding the two houses, and of the man the Terrans were sending. Captain Elias Thorne. The name was a ghost story in the hegemony military academies, the soldier who never retreated, who left nothing but silence in his wake. The journey to Apex Station was a blur of sterile transport cabins and the stifling weight of her ceremonial robes. When the airlock finally hissed open, Lyra expected a brute, a man scarred by the brutality he had inflicted. Instead, she found a man standing by a viewport, his shoulders slumped as if under the weight of the very atmosphere. He didn't look like a conqueror. He looked like a man who had forgotten how to sleep. The hegemony brought a princess to the peace talks. The Terrans brought a ghost. Their first meeting was conducted in the shadow of heavy security detail, but Elias's presence was curiously quiet. He moved with a calculated grace, his eyes scanning the room not with aggression, but with a weary, practiced vigilance. As they were officially presented, his hand touched hers, a brief electric spark of skin meeting skin. It was dry and warm, remarkably human for a man whispered to be a machine of war. They were relocated to Oakhaven Colony, a lush, temperate world meant to be the symbol of their shared future. It was there, amidst the rolling hills and the scent of damp earth, that Lyra began to notice the fissures in his composure. Every night, before the suns dipped below the horizon, Elias would walk the perimeter of their estate. He didn't just stroll. He checked the sensors, tested the lock mechanisms of the perimeter fence, and stared into the tree-line for minutes at a time, his jaw tight. This was his ritual. This was the echo of a man who could never truly believe he was safe. Is the peace we build worth the pieces of ourselves we lose along the way? Subscribe to see if the ghost of the remnant can ever find his way back to the light. During their second week, Lyra found him in the study, staring at a decrypted file she wasn't supposed to see. The header read, Project Revenant. Elias didn't close the screen when she entered. He just looked at her, his dark eyes reflecting the blue light of the terminal. He told her then, in a voice as dry as ash, that he hadn't chosen to become a weapon. He had simply stopped refusing to win. The cost of that victory sat in the room with them, a physical weight that made the air feel thin. At the diplomatic gala a month later, the tension of the colony peaked. Hyexarch Vane, a man who had lost 3 sons to the remnant's counteroffensives, cornered Elias near the refreshment dais. Vane's insults were sharp, designed to draw blood, calling Elias a trained hound in a suit. The POV anchor watched as Elias didn't flinch. He didn't even raise his voice. He simply leaned in, his movement so smooth it was predatory, and whispered a single sentence that made the Exarch's face drain of all color. Peace isn't the absence of violence, Lyra realized as she watched Vane stumble away. It's the presence of a man who knows exactly how to use it. The stillness of the study was shattered 3 days later by the scream of the colony's long-range sensors. The Grendel swarm didn't come with a declaration. They arrived as a blotting out of the stars, thousands of jagged, biomechanical hulls screaming through the upper atmosphere. Elias didn't panic. He didn't even rush. Lyra watched him from the doorway as he methodically stripped off his formal tunic, revealing the dense, surgical scarring of a man who had been rebuilt for the vacuum. His movements were terrifyingly efficient. He wasn't the weary husband anymore. He was the ghost, and the transition was as seamless as a shadow stretching at dusk. They feared the monster he was, Lyra thought as she saw the cold, tactical light ignite in his eyes, until they needed the monster he is. The command hub was a throat clench of smoke and frantic voices when they arrived. The colony's defense grid was failing, the orbital platforms already drifting as silent, molten wreckage. Elias stepped into the center of the room, and the chaos simply died. He didn't take a seat. He stood, his hands hovering over the interface, rewriting the station's logic in real time. He began to bleed the swarm into kill zones, using the planet's own gravitational wells to slingshot debris into their flight paths. He wasn't fighting a war. He was solving a grisly equation. The air grew thin as the swarm's flagship breached the inner clouds, its shadow falling over Oakhaven like a shroud. Lyra felt the deck plates vibrate under her boots, a low-frequency hum that set her teeth on edge. Elias looked at the readings, then at her. There was no apology in his gaze, only a grim, absolute clarity. He had found the one variable the swarm couldn't account for, the planet's own magnetic core. And then he was there, back in that frozen moment at the heart of the hub. The button felt like the end of the world under his thumb. As he depressed it, the hub groaned, the very foundations of the station twisting. He didn't look at the tactical map as the makeshift electromagnetic pulse surged through the planetary crust, riding the magnetic ley lines upward in a visible, shimmering curtain of blue fire. The flagship didn't just explode. It came apart at the molecular level, its electronics fried and its hull buckled by the sudden, violent shift in the atmosphere. The rest of the swarm followed, their propulsion systems turning into localized suns. For a moment, the sky over Oakhaven was brighter than it had been in 1,000 years. The aftermath was a different kind of violence. The joint tribunal was held in a room of cold marble and colder hearts. Lyra sat in the gallery, watching the high exarchs look at Elias with a terror they could no longer hide. They cleared him of all charges. There was no law against saving a world, but they stripped him of his rank, his ship, and his right to carry a weapon. They didn't do it to punish him. They did it because they realized that as long as he held a sword, they were all living in his shadow. When they returned to the quiet hills of Oakhaven, the silence was no longer heavy. It was earned. Elias stood on the porch of their home, his eyes tracing the treeline as he had done every night since they arrived. He looked at his hands, the hands that had vaporized an armada, and Lyra saw them tremble. He asked her if a weapon could ever truly be a man again. Lyra didn't answer with words. She took his hand and placed it against her stomach, where a new, quiet pulse beat against his palm. The first hybrid child, a bridge built of the very blood the galaxy had tried to spill. Elias didn't look at the treeline then. He looked at her. He walked to the perimeter fence, but for the first time he wasn't looking for a breach. He checked the locks with a slow, gentle precision, ensuring the world stayed out so the life inside could stay safe. The ritual had changed. It wasn't a soldier's trauma anymore. It was a father's vigil. The perimeter light flickered green in the twilight, casting a soft glow over the porch where the ghost finally rested. Does the weight of the past ever truly leave us, or do we just get stronger at carrying it? Subscribe to join us for tomorrow's chronicle, where we explore the shadows of the Outer Rim.